Not long ago, I titled a video, Orihime is important, isn't she? Because it felt like Kubo was really starting to give her and her abilities more of a central role. And now we know the answer. Yes, she is absolutely important to this arc story. Extremely important. Is Orihime a god? Well, no, but she's certainly something. Anyway, let's start with what happened during the battle I talked about last video, the fight that was nothing more than a distraction for the real mission that the Arankars were undertaking, the capture of Orihime. Despite Orihime being in the realm between Soul Society and the human world, and despite having 2 Soul Reaper escorts, that's exactly where Aizen wanted her to be, and he sent Ukiura to collect her. Ukiura proved to be much more terrifying than I thought he was. Let's just say it was garbage day, and it was time to take out the trash. I'm so sorry. Up until that point, I only really thought of Ukiura as the shorter, melancholy guy who thinks everyone's trash, and while that's definitely partially who he is, we hadn't seen how ruthless he can really be until these moments. He's mostly just been an observer so far, but him getting his hands dirty is very scary. He cuts down the Soul Reapers with no effort at all before commanding Orihime to come with him. He literally gives her no choice and no say in the matter whatsoever. It's sometimes hard to really make the tension of a scene feel strong enough to the point where the reader or the viewer can feel how helpless trying to resist is. I'd say Walking Dead did a good job of it when it first introduced Negan, or Dragon Ball when it first introduced Majin Buu. It can be a challenge to really transfer that feeling of powerlessness to the audience, but Kubo nailed it with this scene. Ukiura immediately makes it clear that he's in complete control, and it's hard to see one of our heroes have no chance, no say, and kind of no hope. And now with these recent chapters I've read, we see the fallout of that very scary encounter with Ukiura, and it's actually a pretty emotional read. As much as I enjoy the fights and the Bankai reveals or lore expansions of Bleach, what made me love it early on was the emotional core of the story, and how Kubo is really good at exploring the sadder spectrum of emotions. Orihime isn't instantly abducted. She's given 12 hours to prepare herself and can say goodbye to one person of her choosing. It's an interesting tactic, if that's what it is. Aizen and the Arankars are at least seeming to give her some leeway. The catch is that she has to wear a bracelet that makes it so no one can see her except Arankars, and that even when she says goodbye to the person of her choice, she can't make her presence known to them. It's almost the illusion of giving her something when she doesn't actually get to fully say goodbye to her loved ones. But she does make the most of it. But before we get too deep into Orihime leaving, I just want to bring up a couple moments that happened around this time. With Ichigo recovering, we see Rukia worried about him, not just the injuries, but more concerned about the Visored and whatever power Ichigo has started to wield. Rukia was the one that got him into all of this, the one that helped him learn how to be a Soul Reaper, so it must be very concerning to see him learn things from other, more questionable people, and accessing the kind of things that she isn't at all familiar with, things that tap more into the power of Hollows than into the power of Soul Reapers and their Zanpakuto. It's very easy to see why Rukia would be kind of worried about all this. There's also this really sweet sibling moment when Yuzu and Karin come and eat beside the recovering Ichigo, and they even fall asleep next to their brother. It's a nice reminder of the Kurosaki family's bond. They might not all be fully aware of each other's secrets, especially their dads, but they really do care so much about one another in the end. Alright, let's talk about the scene that got me, and say goodbye to the Halcyon days. Of all of the people in her life that Orihime could have chosen to say goodbye to, she chose to say goodbye to Ichigo Kurosaki. He can't see her or hear her, but it gives her a chance to speak to him with complete, beautiful honesty. It's such a touching little moment when Orihime realizes it's the first time she's ever been in his bedroom, ever seen the place where he's at his most vulnerable, and there he is, recovering and without any idea that she's there, or that she's leaving. The whole sentiment that she could live all kinds of different lives with different careers, but in the end, she would still fall in love with the same guy, it got me. It really got me. It's just a sincere, heartfelt confession of love in a moment where I'm sure she understands that this could be the last time she ever sees him. It's just so good. It's so good. I know some people don't really care about romance, and yes, plenty of shows portray really cringy romances or romanticize really toxic relationships, but Orihime's feelings here are portrayed in such a genuine and sweet way. Her relationship with Ichigo has been handled well from the start of the series as a little cute young love dynamic, and this just feels like a natural progression for her to admit these feelings in this way. And it's tragic that Ichigo didn't hear any of it, but she might not have confessed these feelings otherwise. It's just beautiful. All of it. And I'm sure there are people that want Ichigo to be with Rukia, but I've always gotten more of a sibling thing from them, and this seals it for me. I am in camp Orichigo, Ishishime, whatever their combined ship name is. I'm on that ship now. I am sailing on Team Ichigo and Orihime. We need to save her so they can throw a wild wedding and fall in love and live happily ever after with little, Soul Reaper human children. Anyway, it was just a great scene, and a powerful way to send Orihime away for now. After she leaves, Ichigo and the other Soul Reapers learn that Orihime was taken, or as Yamamoto suspects, she could have even gone willingly, maybe even betrayed her friends. But of course, Ichigo doesn't buy this, but of course, the Soul Society doesn't care. They want all of the Soul Reapers there to return home, and they won't allow Ichigo to go save Orihime by himself. Thankfully, our boy Ichigo doesn't listen to authority, and has every intention of going. I thought this whole scene was intense, with how it became increasingly clear that Ichigo is losing all of his support and anyone that might help him. Saving one mortal girl isn't a priority for the Soul Reapers, but it sure as hell is a priority for Ichigo. Yamamoto making the pragmatic but wrong decisions? Go figure. The loss of Orihime is also immediately felt in the mortal world. So let's talk about Tatsuki. Tatsuki is a great character, and my favorite of Ichigo's school friends that have, for the most part, remained on the outskirts of all the supernatural shenanigans affecting their home. Tatsuki's been shown to have been seeing some of it, including Ichigo as a Soul Reaper, and in a very emotional scene where she's desperately trying to find Orihime, she finally confronts Ichigo about it, begging for him to tell her the truth. It's just such an intense moment, with her just completely melting down and just begging. And it's not very often that people from his normal life call Ichigo out and demand the truth. For a character that hasn't been a regular, Tatsuki brings a very familiar gravitas that only a childhood friend could bring. Someone with real history that understands Ichigo better than a lot of other people. Kubo did a great job of showing her frustration and most of all her pain, and even Ichigo's own pain at having to keep hiding his new life from people. But when it comes down to it, Ichigo's a protector. He wants to protect the people in his life, including the people that aren't involved. I wasn't expecting a scene like this in the school. So far, the scenes between Ichigo and his fellow classmates have usually felt so separate from everything, but the tension from the main plot is really bleeding into our normal world, which is fitting considering that the danger is apparently going to be centered on their hometown. With Karakura Town in trouble, I want to see them help. I want to see these classmates be able to defend their homes. And it looks like we may actually get something like that now that his fellow students followed him to Urahara. Personally, I'd love to see the other students somehow get even more involved, maybe even develop their own abilities like Chad and Orihime were able to. And speaking of Chad, I loved him showing up with Ryu to come help Ichigo on his mission to Wako Mundo. They are some of his only allies that aren't beholden to Soul Society or their rules. Although, I am very curious to hear more about Uryu being there, considering part of the condition for him getting his Quincy powers back was to stay away from Soul Reapers and their problems. But he's here anyway. Maybe because this isn't sanctioned by Soul Society, he can be like, well, I'm not really supporting the actual Soul Reapers. Like, do official substitute Soul Reapers not really count as far as his Quincy doctrines? I also like that we got a glimpse of how much stronger they've gotten, and I'm looking forward to seeing some old friends get into some action. Hopefully there's some cool new moves or transformations in store for them and for us. So they're now ready to travel to Wako Mundo, the home of the Hollows, and come on, it's me. I am beyond excited to get a better look at this realm and some more hollows that live there. I'll never say no to more hollows, not ever, and I hope we get more hollows than we've ever gotten before. Once Orihime is at Aizen's castle within Wako Mundo, he asks that she demonstrate her power because some aren't convinced that she was worth the trouble. It's here that we learn that her power goes beyond most abilities. Aizen calls it phenomena rejection, where she can make it so that things that happen never happened, including damage to the body among other things. And to showcase this, she restores Grimmjow's arm, which shouldn't be possible, proving that, as Aizen puts it, her powers break divine law. This is wild. Ever since Ukiura pointed out her power, it was clear to me that it was going to be something powerful, but this is just so beyond my expectations. We went from her being a healer to the theory that she could revert time to this, which is just so much more. If she can really learn how to use this ability, then yeah, maybe she's a god. Remember when she was just the girl that was sad about her dead brother? Wild. But the best part comes when Grimmjow asks her to heal one more part of him, the scar from where the 6 had been removed when he got demoted. So now there are 2 number 6s in the Espada, and in the words of Highlander, there can be only one. So my boy Grimmjow murders Lupi, and all of the sadness these chapters have made me feel is washed away for a second by just how happy I am that Lupi didn't just die, but Grimmjow got to be the one to do it. It was such a satisfying moment, even a little cathartic. I was nervous Lupi would stick around for a while, but this was perfect. Good riddance, Lupi. We barely knew you, and I'm okay with that. So yeah, these chapters weren't action-packed or anything, but the tension that Kubo cultivated as we move into the next part of the story was intense and at times emotional. It's hard to see some of our characters being put into very vulnerable positions, whether it's Orihime having to leave, opening up about her real feelings as she says goodbye, Tatsuki trying to make sense of everything she's seen and the sudden disappearance of her best friend, or Ichigo realizing that he's gonna have to go up against immeasurable odds without all that much help. But hey, he's done it before. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Thanks for the patience as this video has kind of been on the back burner of my life for a little bit. I'm so excited to be going to the homeland of the Hollows and all of the spooky adventures awaiting us in Wako Mundo. I'll see you next time. Take care.